What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about how INFJs win, and it comes down to two aspects. On the one hand, it's all about optimizing. On the other hand, it's about pushing. And it all has to do with the INFJ's cognitive functions. So the optimizing part is our introverted way of thinking, and the pushing side is the one thing we have to do when we tap into our extroverted side. We as INFJs tend to go only in the optimizing direction. That's the NITI loop for you, but it doesn't have to be this way. If you make sure that you push as well, so you know how to tap into your extroverted functions, you get to create this amazing optimal solution that allows you to win in any circumstance you're putting yourself in. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ Epic Life, then work with me privately or join the INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp. We have a waitlist at this moment. We're starting end of May approximately, and there's going to be a payment plan. You find all the information below. So when I say that INFJs tend to go only in the optimizing direction, it's not that all INFJs do that. We also have examples of INFJs who go only into their extroverted side, and you do this when you're in a really bad state. So in both of those scenarios, if you go way to left or way to right, or in our case, way too introverted or way too extroverted, we will get in trouble. We have to make sure that all of those four functions are used, and they're used in the right combination. That's when we create optimal results. Why is that? Well, if you only optimize, what is actually happening? You pick up information through your introverted intuition, and then you give it some kind of meaning. You build a logical system around it through introverted thinking. So that's how you take on NITI. That's how you optimize. So you take on information from the environment, you synthesize it, so you create a system around it, and you optimize it, right? We remove all those informations that are irrelevant for us and pick patterns that will help us to create a future outcome, something that could happen when we would move forward. But then we very often don't do that. We stay in our mind. We say, well, I have been able to gather all of these informations, but now there's no way for me to move forward. And we don't know why that is actually happening, because we're still going to work. We're still making sure that our family life is in order. We're taking care of our bills. Life is happening all around. And then we ask ourselves, well, why do I feel like my life is not moving forward? I used to feel the same way while I was working. And it's not that to say, okay, now that I'm my own boss, I don't have to worry about this at all. No, I'm just giving an example of if your lifestyle is a day in and day out doing the same kind of routine, you're very easily falling into this trap. That being said, if you say, okay, I'm going to also use this point of pushing into my life, I'm going to lean into my extroverted functions, that will also not mean that you'll necessarily quit working for somebody, that you'll start your own business, or that you have to get out of society. Nothing of that sort. You decide what is right for you at any given moment. And any situation that you're in, if it's a job, if it's a relationship, if it's a business endeavor that you're taking on, those two aspects are important. So let's talk about the pushing aspect for us INFJs. It's not that you only go into extroverted feeling or that you only go into extroverted sensing. It is in combination. If you would only tap into extroverted sensing, that would be working out, that would be going on a hike, that would be doing something physical that you say, I'm going to put this into action. But everything besides that, everything that has something to do with the fact that you're creating something in the real world, that always works in combination of FE and SE. So how does it look like if you combine those two? It's about pushing forward a system of values, a system of that's how I want other people to perceive something. See, that FE, specifically in our second function, is a creative function, meaning we create an emotional atmosphere. And you might say, well, isn't it for INFJs that they actually pick up what's going on around them and that they can adapt to it? Yes, they can. But how do they do that? They give back an emotional atmosphere that is similar to what is already existing. That's how we adapt. But that's one possible way to go, and it's probably not the healthiest one. That's what we do on default, so we don't rock the boat, so we don't create this harmony, and we actually are not moving forward. Because here's the point. If you're not creating new information information in your environment. So on the outside, there is no way for your mind, meaning your introverted functions in this case, so introverted intuition and introverted thinking, to create a new system or to optimize. Imagine like this, you're going into a new environment, you're starting a new job, you move to a new city. Every single time you're there, you're confronted with all new information. It's a completely new scene. If you like it or not, it's always going to feel different, let's say a week in or a month in. That's because we pull up all this information, we create a system around it, we create a pattern, and then we feel we have arrived. But here comes the thing. Once you've arrived, we stay there. It never feels the same way, the way it felt when you first moved somewhere, where you started something completely new. And of course, we don't want this all the time. It's not about moving to a new city every month, because that would overwhelm us. If you start something completely new over and over again, you're always confronted with an enormous amount of information, and it takes some time to synthesize it, to understand what is important to me, what am I going to neglect. For example, some people you met, you realize, okay, those are not the people I want to hang out with in that job. That's the kind of field I want to involve myself in. The list goes on and on. But the opposite of that is that we have actually arrived in a situation where we are in a certain city. We have established a position within a company. We have a set group of friends. And if we're in this state, then nothing new enters our system. So we cannot optimize anything new. And that is the point where so many INFJs get into this NITI loop. They start to overanalyze something without having new information. So because this is something which we naturally want to do, we want to take in new information, synthesize it, optimize it, you know how I always say it, and that intrinsically brings us joy. But how are we going to use that in order to win in life if we're always confronted with the same information? We try to dissect it even more, we try to analyze it even more, and we actually start to go way too deep into other people's agendas, into a certain situation that might turn out in your favor or it might not. We spend so much of our time daydreaming because we're not able to fulfill this need of ours with something healthy. But here's the healthy part. This is how you can change. This is how you can win in life in any kind of circumstance. It actually comes down to this aspect. You understand that in order to get this machine running, this INFJ machine of yours, you have to be able to put new information into your system, an amount of information that gets you out of your comfort zone but doesn't overwhelm you. So which allows you continuously to pick up new information, which then allows you to optimize it, find the best solution, and then get to the next spot. That is the way you grow throughout life. And so how are we going to do that? We need to take something new on. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't mean that you have to start a new hobby every week, but you have to have something which you can grow in. If you have a job, for example, and you know, yes, I'm going to get a raise after a year or 3 years, and there's nothing actually I can do to make this process go faster, you actually numb out at this aspect. This doesn't give you the satisfaction. We have to have something where we continuously are able to grow. And that's where the combination of FE and SE comes in. We are pushing our message. We are pushing something that we believe in, and it can be in any kind of scenario. It can be through your art. It can be through the way you talk to people. It can be through the way you see the world and you express it through your music or the way you write, or choosing that kind of job that allows you to continuously grow in that aspect. There's so many ways you can do this. There's so many ways how you can add to the world by using your gifts. So what happens there is that you create a positive reinforcement that allows you to continuously grow. So if you want to win in an aspect and you say, well, I want to get better at dating, it's not about understanding that one person particularly. What we have to learn is to become a person who can actually be able to manage this whole process without getting overwhelmed. So going on more dates, trying online dating, asking your friends to recommend you to people. Same thing goes for, let's say, the job market. You want to create a better job for yourself. How do you do that? You cannot wait for people to approach you. You cannot say, oh, I'm so nervous if they're going to take me, because then you're solely focusing all your attention on the information you have at hand, which is, okay, I know, let's say 30% of how to get a certain job. This is just an example to make it easier. Okay, so let's say 30% you know of what it would take to get that job. And so you send out an application and you sit there and you hope and you're nervous because it isn't in your control. First first off, you only know how to do 30% of it because you've never really tried to apply somewhere before that is similar to that job, or maybe once or twice, which definitely hasn't given you any kind of knowledge in this area. And second of all, you're not in control because you're focusing on something that somebody else has to decide. You're focusing on, am I going to get that job? And you're not making that decision. That is what somebody else is deciding to do. So how do you change the narrative in this? What we can control is that we become somebody who's able to apply professionally and successfully to these kind of positions. How do we do that? We actually start the process of applying to jobs over and over again and having as our goal to send out applications, to learn from that feedback and put it back into our system. So how does this make sense with the introvert and the extroverted functions? Well, let's think about it. You send out applications and you get the feedback of, this is not enough. You might even not get enough information, but once you actually get the feedback back, we're not taking you, you have more information than before. Because before you thought there is a chance that the way I apply right now, they're going to take me. You know, you've optimized the situation. You know, okay, from what I know, they might take me or they might not take me. You put that information into your system, you make a conclusion, and then you send out your resume. And the sending out of the resume is the SEFE part. SE, because you actually put action behind it. It's an externally observable action. FE, because they get a sense of who you are. This isn't an application like you write down, this is my number, this is what I've done. It has so much also to do with the way you present yourself. Are you somebody who talks about yourself in a way of, I don't know if I'm good enough for this? Or are you talking about it like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. This is what I'm about. Whatever it is, there isn't a binary thing. It's not like good or bad. It's the way you do it. It's the way you put an emotional atmosphere out there, as in the people who see your application, they get a sense of who you are. But the moment you get the feedback of, oh, this isn't enough, you have one more information, and that is the way you just did it isn't right. That doesn't give you the result you want. And that answer in itself already helps you to remove 95% of applications that you would send out or that you would think would work out, because you know that's not the way it's going to work. So you're having new information into your system, you optimize it again, you recognize, okay, now that I've had this information that this isn't enough, I need to change something. So I optimize it and then I send something out again. So by you sending something out, so you're applying FESE again, you're doing it in a way that already includes the information you got from the step before, which is, I know the way I did it last time didn't work. This kind of process is supposed to repeat itself over and over again. You get the better job, you find that kind of relationship that you always wanted, it was just a projection, but now that I went for it, I have the information what doesn't work, what does work, and I apply myself, I understand the world differently because of this information, and then I can push forward. So we need to have both of those aspects. We need to learn from what we take into our system, but it's not going to change anything if we're not willing to get out of our comfort zone and to push again, to bring what we know right now to the outside, knowing that, yeah, it's probably not going to be perfect, that, yeah, people are not going to see everything that you're about, that they will have judgments about you, but that's the only way you can gather new information. Similarly, if you say, I want to start a YouTube channel, for example, do you know how it was for me when I first started this? I remember that the moment I started, I felt like absolutely everybody who knew me up until this point will judge me, will think I'm weird, will not understand what I'm doing. And on top of that, when I watched myself back on the video, it wasn't in any kind something that I was proud about at that moment. All I saw were flaws. All I saw was what I didn't bring to the table. And in a sense of how I wasn't able to converse what I was thinking, how I was experiencing myself and the world to the outside. Because that in itself, transformation from this internal world into something external, also takes practice, and it also takes information. I have done so many things in my life that seemed crazy at that time, but I'm so thankful I did them them, because through that, I learned what isn't part of my reality, what I was only able to imagine as a possible scenario, because these were the information I had at hand. By you continuously tapping for something new and tapping into growth and tapping into something that will force you to push yourself, you're automatically making the system go up and up. So before I started to do this full time, went for my last full-time job, I knew this isn't the job I was going to do for the rest of my life. I knew this wasn't going to bring me all the internal satisfaction and this feeling of, oh, I found my vocation. But I knew one thing: my last job before that didn't allow me to grow. And that new job was in a top-tier consulting agency in banks in Europe, and I knew when I was there, I would surround myself with people who had much more ambition. I would surround myself with something that will force me to grow. And so I pushed myself into a new sphere. I was a little bit overwhelmed, learned how to find that balance of getting out of my comfort zone and not being overwhelmed, taking in that information, optimizing it, and then going for my next step. Your next step is always based on the optimizing strategy that you've been able to create. And the way you do that is because of the information that you've gotten back because of what you push to the outside. This is our INFJ secret sauce. This is our winning strategy. Use introverted intuition and introverted thinking to optimize, and extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing to put that knowledge, that new synthesized world on the outside. Use that. You have to continuously push yourself to grow. It can be in small ways, it can be in different areas, but if you want to grow as a person and you want to feel like you're getting more and more in control, if you want your life to exponentially grow in all areas that you're looking for, it won't work unless you're willing to go that extroverted round as well. Remember guys, if you want my help with this process, then work with me privately or join the INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp. We have a waiting list and a payment plan this time, so it starts next month. Get excited, and if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the INFJ learning style. Like always guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.